Today is a gift. That is why it is called a present.
Dreamworks for a long time has been one of the most fascinating production companies in the world. They for a while were a long time rival to Disney, and in my opinion have created some of the most iconic animated movies and franchises of all time. Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon, the Bee Movie, everyone is here. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert on DreamWorks. Out of the 39 movies that they've released since 1998, I don't even think I've seen half. But I think you can forgive me because there are some real stinkers in there. However, I've done some research and I'm going to try my best to explain everything. However, before this video starts, I need to let it be known that this list isn't especially dark. There's no murder, there's no assassination or anything. These are just relatively unknown facts more than dark stuff, so if you're looking for some dark stuff, you're not going to find it here. Okay, up first we have Shrek Memes. Now these have been circulating around the internet for quite some time now. I mean, we've all seen the All-Star meme. One giant onion eating an onion every day. I mean, you know, there's so many. If you're watching this video, you've definitely seen a Shrek. I, however, wanted to make the point that the Shrek meme exploded, in my opinion, right after Shrek is Love, Shrek is Life. That's the video I think that was the catalyst that ignited the internet's love of Shrek memes. Trolls 2 World Tour will go down in the history books, but not for the reason that you would have thought. If you didn't know, Trolls 2 World Tour wasn't released in cinemas, instead being released on streaming services from the off due to the coronavirus. To my knowledge though, this was the first big studio film, other than maybe Netflix films because they don't really count, that has been released directly onto streaming. As far as I'm aware as well, on top of that, it broke records to become the highest grossing digitally released film at the time. Obviously, COVID made it so theatres had shut. By the way, when they reopen, support your local cinema. And DreamWorks just went balls to the wall and released it anyway, and it worked, basically by all regards. Since then, a lot of companies have done the same, but DreamWorks was the first. Okay, now for some fun stuff, the upcoming movies. Similar to my Pixar Iceberg, DreamWorks actually also has 3 upcoming movies. Those being Spirited Untamed, set to release in June of this year, and it looks... yeah, I don't really know if I'm the right demographic for this one. Okay, well, their next movie must be a little bit more up my alley. It's Boss Baby 2 Family Business. Well, I can't wait to see the table scraps from the first movie, the Academy Award nominated first movie, and then either way, then we have The Bad Guys set to release in 2022, and I think this one looks a little bit better, something that I personally would be more likely to see. And yeah, I mean, even though Spirit Untamed I'm sure might do well, it's just not my demographic, but we'll move on. DreamWorks is owned by Universal, as it seems. Back in 2016, Universal bought DreamWorks for $3.8 billion. This made Universal Disney's #1 contender in terms of making animated movies, as Universal now owns both DreamWorks and a company we'll get back to in a minute. As Disney, Netflix and Warner have been buying up properties and franchises recently, it makes sense that Universal would buy DreamWorks, leaving us now with a real oligopoly on our hands and setting the stage for the war of the streaming services, especially now that Universal has just released Peacock. The Disney rivalry is well known. Everyone knows that these two companies have a certain amount of disdain for each other, and if you don't believe me, watch Shrek. One of the reasons why it's so good is because it's literally just a massive you to the face of Disney cliches, and DreamWorks did it before Disney thought it was cool to shit on their own movies. So I definitely respect them for that.
Do people assume all of your problems got solved because a big strong man showed up? Yes, what is up with that?
Like, this was your cliche, how do you... what? I don't know if there's any bad blood between the two companies, but with both of them working in the same field, and for a time being the only really prevalent Western animation companies, you can kind of see why the two are rivals. And on top of this, both DreamWorks and Pixar were conceived at around a similar time. They've also released a similar amount of movies, and so you can compare them quite well. The Dreamworks Face was something I was unaware of, but now that I've seen it, I just can't unsee it. When designing these characters, why do they all have to look so smug? Why do all DreamWorks characters have to be lifting their eyebrows? I mean, what? Why? Why do they all have the same face? John Lasseter leaving Pixar is something I'm gonna get into further down the iceberg, but for now I can say that the Toy Story director is employed at Skydance Studios, Paramount's newest animation company that seems to be making strides in the animation game by any means necessary. However, for now, I think that's all I'm going to say because there's another entry similar to this where I think this is more appropriate to get into. Being from the UK, I didn't actually know that DreamWorks had a channel as far as I was aware, and a good proportion of my audience likely won't either because its American equivalent is called Universal Kids, but the DreamWorks channel, according to Wikipedia, seems to only be available in Asia, Africa, Oceania, and Netherlands for some reason. I'm not too sure why only Netherlands get get it in Europe, but we'll roll on. So before DreamWorks were bought out by Universal, they actually co-produced a lot of live-action movies you might be aware of. American Beauty, Gladiator, A Beautiful Mind, Saving Private Ryan. It doesn't seem to fit DreamWorks, but it seems as if they knew what they were doing. This is likely because Steven Spielberg co-founded DreamWorks, but yeah, it's just incredible. It's bizarre to think that DreamWorks has had a hand in making some of these incredible movies. The Disney-DreamWorks rivalry probably hit its peak in the late 90s, early 2000s, with Antz being a huge source of contention. This story is one of betrayal and revenge, but from what I've interpreted, a simplified version goes like this. Many years ago, Jeffrey Katzenberg, one of the co-founders of DreamWorks, was working at Disney under the then CEO Michael Eisner. He was poised to become the second in command, wanting to leapfrog Frank Wells. However, when Wells tragically died in a helicopter crash in 1994, Eisner took on Wells' job instead of giving the position to Katzenberg, who eventually resigned. This led Katzenberg to co-found DreamWorks SKG along with David Geffen and Steven Spielberg. Allegedly, Katzenberg had been keeping in contact with many of the people who still worked at Disney, stealing the idea and creating Antz, the knockoff of A Bug's Life. I believe he's admitted it since, so yeah. Even if you like Antz, it is a knockoff of A Bug's Life. Shrek the Musical. I don't even want to talk about this thing. How is this not at the bottom of the iceberg? What can I say other than they made a musical of Shrek? It was developed in 2008 and predominantly was based off the original movie, with elements of Shrek 2 scattered in there. It closed in January 2010 after a 12-month run, being revived in 2011 on the West End for a short time, and it toured the UK in 2018. This thing will not die, and I love it, and I hate it, and I have so many opinions, and Aardman Animations was an animation studio that signed up to create movies with DreamWorks. They're best known for their work on Wallace and Gromit. They're the weird British stop-motion animation company. You know that one. Anyways, in 1999, they and DreamWorks had signed a 5-movie deal set to be completed over 12 years. Weirdly similar to the Disney and Pixar deal made around the same time. Anyways, the companies produced Chicken Run, Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and Flushed Away, before calling it a day in 2005 due to creative differences. One future project that they would have collaborated on would turn out to be The Croods. But yeah, for some reason they called it a day, they never made the 5 movies, and so was the end of Aardman and DreamWorks working together. I can't really be bothered to run down the list of Netflix series produced by DreamWorks, so here's just a small list of DreamWorks shows that are going on Netflix right now. If any of these interest you, check them out. But unless I'm unaware, there hasn't been too much controversy with these, they're just under the radar. I kind of touched on this one a little bit with my video on animated movies at the Oscars, but I don't think I ever referenced Shrek by name. Basically, while animated movies have never won Best Picture, with only 3 ever being nominated, in 2001, the Academy added a new category in an attempt to appreciate some of the great work being put into animation at the time. This was Best Animated Feature, the first winner of which was Shrek, and so it's always going to be going down in the history books as the first movie to win Best Animated Feature. Boy on the Moon story is a simple one. Steven Spielberg wanted to create a logo inspired by early Hollywood. The idea was his, and a man named Robert Hunt was hired to paint Spielberg's idea of a man on the moon fishing. Robert Hunt made some variations, one of which being a boy instead of a man. And Spielberg liked that one the most. It was more universal, more relatable to our inner child, and the boy who modelled the boy on the moon was Robert Hunt's son. Pearl Animation was formerly known as Oriental DreamWorks, and it's a Chinese production company that was founded in 2012. They've collaborated on a few films with DreamWorks now, most notably Kung Fu Panda 3 and Abominable, which we'll be getting back to. They've also worked on Netflix's Over the Moon, but again, I'm going to talk about this one a little bit later because they have run into some controversy. So it seems as if DreamWorks has ripped off Disney again, because DreamWorks, just like the Pixar theory, has a theory in which all of their films take place in the same universe. It starts with Croods and ends with Abominable. And this one wasn't actually started by DreamWorks, obviously it was started by fans, but it is, again, basically the Pixar theory, just with DreamWorks instead, so there is a bit of overlap there. Trolls 2 is a metaphor for racism, if you didn't know. I haven't seen the movie, I can't really speak too much about it, but after scouring the internet and consulting with my friends, apparently it is just a metaphor for racism. I don't really know why Trolls 2 needs to be the movie of all of them to be talking about racism. I feel like Zootopia was fine, but if Trolls 2 want to talk about racism, Trolls 2 can talk about racism, I guess. Now this is the time in the video where I have to admit that Illumination exists. I know I spoke a little bit about them before, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper in now. I think it's quite hated throughout the film enthusiast community. And yeah, I have to admit that I'm not really a fan of most of their work. I don't hate the Despicable Me movies, and yeah, that's probably it. I hate pretty much all of the rest of their work. Well, in November 2018, it was announced that they'd be rebooting Shrek, and in December 2018, that idea was scrapped. Because, I mean, good. Look at what they did to the Grinch. Look at how they massacred my boy! An Illumination Shrek would have been a disaster, and I'm so glad that it didn't happen. Chris Farley was a famous comedian who was huge in the earlier mid-90s. Now, while a lot of people know him for his work on SNL, Tommy Boy and Beverly Hills Ninja, a lot of people don't know that he was originally set to be the voice of Shrek before Mike Myers took the iconic role. This is because Farley died of a drug overdose in 1997, and for that reason the role was given to Myers, who I think we all can say did the role a lot of justice. We all know that Hollywood has been selling its soul for a while now to China. This isn't me trying to be racist, there are many articles that have said the same thing, and there's a lot of evidence for this. The Chinese market is huge, Hollywood loves money, hence they make their movies Chinese friendly. Well, Dreamworks took this one step too far in their 2019 movie Abominable, which was co-produced by Pearl Animation. There's a lot of things that could be suggested to be propaganda throughout, but one of the most controversial images was halfway through the movie where there's a map on the wall that features the highly controversial 9-dash line that is China's claim that major parts of the South China Sea rich with resources. Malaysia, Philippines and Vietnam have since banned the movie, and yeah, it doesn't really look very good for Dreamworks. This one was hugely controversial and completely unneeded in all regards. Why they let this into the movie is beyond me. I'm not really sure why this one is so low. I thought that knowledge of Shrek 5 was relatively known, but perhaps I just haven't found the right articles. Maybe there's something else about it that I haven't found, but what I have found is that Shrek 5 is going to be a thing. It's going to be rebooting the Shrek franchise as we speak, and it's going to be done by Dreamworks, not Illumination. Shrek 5 will apparently see the return of Farquaad according to Dev Discourse, and according to DeviantArt let's move on. Shout out to my friends for giving me a bit more information about this one. This is a fun little tidbit, but the video game of Kung Fu Panda came out before the movie, and so if anything, technically, the movie is based off the game. There's not really too much else to say about this one, but it just kind of is funny that the first bits of Kung Fu Panda was the game, not the movie. This entry only does Dreamworks half the credit because according to David Geffen, they didn't just almost become bankrupt once, but also twice. They lost a ton of money on El Dorado in 2000, and maybe after making a little bit of money back on Chicken Run and Shrek, when all was looking good for them, they likely broke about even on Spirit in 2002 and lost even more money on Sinbad the next year. And let's just say they almost became bankrupt twice. They definitely had some growing pains. These days, Dreamworks seems to make a good bit of money. They're not knocking it out of the park by any means, but back in the day, it seems as if they got off to a very, very rocky start. Almost done now. John Lasseter, I spoke about him earlier and his move to Skydance, but now the question is why? And I'm not sure why this is really included on the Dreamworks kind of chart, but I'll answer it anyway just because it's here. I'm sure a lot of people already know this isn't too uncommon knowledge, but the Toy Story director was fired from Pixar after allegations of sexual abuse, after he had allegedly grabbed, kissed, and made inappropriate comments about the physical attributes of the staff. When you're in a position of power like he was in, this can be a bit damning, so Disney let him go. However, in January 2019, he joined Skydance Animation, prompting esteemed actress Emma Thompson to leave her voice role in the upcoming movie Luck. So the company seems to be getting off to a bit of a controversial start before they've even made their first movie. It hasn't even come out yet. Luck has not come out yet, and there's already a ton of controversy. But we'll just have to see how it is. Some people will probably boycott the movie, I'm sure, but I don't really have too much else to say about it. And the final one, I don't understand this either. Will Ferrell plays Megamind? Yeah, I guess this is maybe such common knowledge that it's meant to be here at the bottom, but I don't know. Either way, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and again, apologies, I'm not the biggest Dreamworks fan, I don't know too much about the company, so if I made any mistakes, please let me know down in the comments. And yeah, just quick before this video ends, massive shout out to Feifei Loveheart, I think that's how you pronounce the name, who has done me this spectacular profile pic. It's amazing, and just massive shout out there. Great work. Thank you very, very much. Check Feifei out on Instagram. I definitely recommend. Also let me know what you want me to do next, because I'm only 13 videos in and I'm already out of ideas. Thank you for watching.